can bring this meeting to order. If anyone will please rise and salute the flag. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Mr. McCullough, can we get a roll call, please?
Mr. Seminaro. Mrs. Hamill.
Here.
Mr. Kurtz. Here. Mr. McCullough. Here. Mr. McLaughlin.
Here.
Mr. Pop.
Here.
Mr. Shaheen.
Here.
Mr. Wolf.
Here.
And Mr. Basil.
Here. Okay, this is a budget workshop meeting for the benefit of the public. We're going to be discussing the budget for a little while and things related to the budget, and then when we're done at the end of the meeting, we'll take public comment. Okay? Having said that, Ms. Penza had forwarded around to the board an updated worksheet detailing some changes and modifications to our budget, and I'm going to ask Ms. Penza if she would just go over just the changes from the April 16th version to this latest version for the benefit of the board as well as the public.
The changes in the expenditures were the reduction in special education placements of the $200,000 that the board agreed to move over to the left-hand side, the middle school foreign language curtailment for $124,388.70, and miscellaneous reduction to an extracurricular stipend based on the approval of a coach for next year. And just a note above, as I put a little text box in there for you, the elementary curtailment number changed. It actually went up a little bit due to the actual personnel that were involved. So that is now 121 to 1215 reduction. For the revenue piece, we had an increase in the access funding that we spoke about at the last meeting, which was $50,000, and I also have now included the YMCA rental fees in there for $15,000.
Okay. So just for the benefit of everyone here, the FTE in the elementary curriculum, that used to be 112, it's now 121. And I believe the reduction due to the extracurricular stipend changed from like 800 and change to 1,400?
No, that's a new one. If you look above the blue line,
oh, I see,
that's
it's
an
new.
additional one.
Okay.
So that was actually from your football coach that you approved at the last meeting
I
versus
see.
what I had in the prior coach.
So those are two different coaches?
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. And then down below, the only addition really that we hadn't discussed was the YMCA rental fee.
Right. We actually had discovered that that was never being budgeted. It's a coding issue at the moment, and it needs to be budgeted in the revenue side. So
Gotcha.
we've been receiving it. It just was never on the budget side.
We were accounting for it in a way that we felt needed to be reflected consistent with, the way it should be accounted for, so we've included it as revenue. Very similar, it's the same concept as the transition house. This one just wasn't in there. It was somehow got on the expenditure side, so we made the correction.
Okay. Any questions or comments from board members? Okay. Seeing none. Anything from transportation that we can discuss tonight?
Well, right now we're at Mr. Rhodes was on vacation last week, so we were working by phone, viewing our conditions, and he has some information he emailed me today. I'd rather talk in executive about that.
Okay. Is it positive?
There is a positive. I mean, pretty much where we were last week, but there's a little information we need to discuss.
Okay. All right. I know you guys met with Act 93. I take it there's nothing to report outside of executive session?
Back, and speak with their people, and we're going to meet with them on the 21st, which we know is well beyond your date. But anything we get, we can use to adjust our numbers.
You're meeting with them on the 21st?
21st of May. That's as soon as Mrs. Training Committee, she's going out for some surgery and won't be back. We're going to meet with them until then. So we'll adjust. I mean, the numbers we had, we just have to make adjusting out of the we'll end up taking what if we come to an agreement. So.
Okay. Any other new ideas or anything anybody else wants to share? Thoughts?
Well, I sat in rain. I mean, we're at the point now where on the back of a piece of newspaper, whatever you're going to do, try to run some numbers, and I'd just like to bounce something off the board just to get us moving and talking. I think we definitely need to take the foundation, 50,000, move it to the left as an expenditure. We need to take a shot. If we don't do it, then it's always going to be questioned, why didn't you do it, why didn't you do it, why didn't you do it? Let's put the 50,000 back on the other side as an expenditure, which brings us to 830, 881, 353. There's also Dr. Abu, you can address the cross-country coach for safety. I know that's not in there.
If you remember, the cross-country parents had come to us back when, I honestly don't remember the date, during this Title IX questions, and we had said we would address it as part of the budget. If it were going to be put in, it would have to. I've discussed it with the high school administration, with the athletic facilitator, and their recommendation is that they currently have 2 coaches to create a more safe environment for those cross-country athletes, that an additional coach would be needed.
It's an assistant coach somewhere around, I put a $3,000 placeholder, which is probably adequate for that. Which brought us to 884, 353. And again, nobody shoot me for this, so I'm going to just bring it up. Watch the 2 guys in the front row.
Actually, before you move on to the next suggestion, can we just talk about the foundation?
Okay, yep.
So I guess my question was twofold. One, I thought if we were going to move forward with this, some of that monies would be coming out of fund balance this year.
Yeah, I put 50 just as, you're right, probably, what, 8,000 need to come out of this year's fund balance and 42 out of next year. Is that the number?
It's like 9.
9,000, okay, so 9 and 41. So instead of 50, you want to make it 41 for the math?
I just want to clarify what's what, and my understanding was is the 41 then that we're going to talk about for next year, that's not all at once, that's a gradual drawdown as well. So it may not even be something.
None of it if you start generating
Exactly.
revenue.
Based on the success of the organization, if they get up and running as advertised and begin to bring in revenue, it may never show up on our books as money even taken from us.
Right.
So I think if, once the final, we can begin the process. If we have the authorization to use funds from this year, we wouldn't have to wait for the budget to be passed, and then we could let the foundation get started with what they need to do.
If we all agree that this is an endeavor we should do, we should probably get Mr. Subers to draft something immediately so that we can vote on it and get it going at the next voting meeting.
I'll have that ready for the 14th.
If everybody's in agreement. I mean,
Well, let's find out. I mean, who here is in favor of funding a foundation?
I am, with the caveat that depending on what Mr. Sheen's next comments are going to be, following the foundation.
So
I think it's an all-entailing thing, but
Right.
I'm not.
Well, remember, our goal is to not expend the money, it's to be a loan. And the foundation...
You got 7 or 7-1, or it's going to be 8-0, depending upon what we accept and Mr. McCullough goes with. So I think that being said, Mr. Basil, if we can get Mr. Subers to draft that document to go with it, then we can start. I would hate to see, the more you dig into it, and I was one of the biggest naysayers here, the more we dig into it, the more you're finding that they can raise some significant money. If it's $100,000, it's $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, more than we got right now for a very small investment. And if it goes to the wayside, then we'll be one of the only, I think, that this gentleman has worked with that hasn't been able to get any money out of his efforts.
Hey, I'll just give you an example from my high school. I just recently received a little mailer about the alumni yearbook from 1920 up through 2006. It sounded pretty interesting. It's a yearbook, and they keep up in touch with everyone. $129.95. Mm-hmm. And when I asked her, I said, well, how many of these are you selling? She says, I've been selling hundreds. And it's like that person that just won't go away. If you don't want the 129, they have a different
Give you a paperback version with
$99.95, and then finally you can get the CD-ROM of your class for $69.99. So I mean, she had indicated that she's selling hundreds of which ones, I don't know, but it certainly seems like there's some opportunities there.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. So if everyone's in agreement, we'll move the 50 over, or 41 over, and authorize the use of fund balance this year, the other 9 this year for getting the foundation up and running. I suspect then you'll need to touch base with Bob New and our solicitor.
I will be on the phone with him tomorrow and with Mr. Subers and get this process rolling and have a full report for you ready for the May board meeting, the committee of the whole.
Just so I know the process, the 9,000 we're going to say we'll spend this year, does that need to come to the voting meeting, or is that?
I would authorize it. I think that's smart to authorize it.
We can vote on that probably at the committee of the whole meeting.
Okay, that's fine.
And have a discussion then. And I don't know whether, maybe when you're talking with Bob New, maybe it's too late, but that EITC money,
I'll do what I can. I'll bring it right
the
up.
deadline's like June 1st. June.
Let's get moving.
Yeah, we don't give them the option that it's too late.
Yeah.
Right.
Is it July
and he,
1st?
I think
it
he'll
was,
give it his best shot.
but-
So we'll start
we can
tomorrow.
recoup the investment right there.
Right off the bat. Are we also all in agreement with the cross-country coach? It's a safety issue, if for nothing else.
In light of all the discussions, I think there's been a lot of chatter with Title IX. This, in my opinion, I'm not the legal expert, but given that cross country is a co-ed team, I don't think there's a Title IX issue, but I do believe, I have to accept those closest to the work. I'm not out there watching them do what they do, but I have to trust that the people that are watching over them are giving me good advice, so I support the fact that they don't want to put kids in an unsafe situation, so I recommend that we start with increasing it by one coach.
We can't have a volunteer coach.
The problem with I hear with cross country is they're kind of finicky about volunteers showing up and vouching for the kids. We did ask that. That was my first question when it was brought to me.
Volunteers don't show up then.
Yeah, the problem is the volunteers didn't show up, and then when you go to different schools, Mr. Durso was talking about this, that the home school has rules, and most of them will not allow a volunteer coach to come and represent the team, or walk the course.
I think what we need to do, regardless of whether we do the assistant coach or not, I think we need to somehow deputize or whatever our volunteer coaches so that because they are there to help. And what's the point if they can't walk a course or run backup or whatever it is if there's an injury or something else? So I think our athletic facilitator needs to make sure that the school districts we're working with understand that, hey, look, our volunteer coaches they're valid and they've been checked out and they have the full authority to act in that capacity, and there shouldn't be any.
Part of the problem is when the coach goes up, he says, "Are you a coach?" And I'm a volunteer.
Well, the answer that I never.
You're a coach. Let it go.
The answer that I never got is how would a visiting team or somebody else know whether they're a volunteer or not? I don't quite understand that, but I'll find out.
They're stating they're a volunteer.
Oh, okay.
I'm not a volunteer.
Well, then we have to work on that communication process.
But again, for the exercise that we're walking here for the budget, are we okay with using that and looking to put that in the budget for next year?
How did you arrive at the 3,000?
It's actually probably less.
It may be a little less. It's just average stipend using that.
Contract in recent years.
Small amount for safety.
No, I just want to.
Until the budget is finalized, we can actually adjust that number when we look at it, what it exactly would be. We're just giving you a range right now.
That's fine. I just wanted to understand how that number was arrived.
Yeah, there's a stipend, years of experience, et cetera, that's contractual.
So if we're okay with that one, then I can continue to, Mr. McCullough. So I looked at those two as expenditures, and again, just for the sake of getting us moving, move $664,000 as the index increase we're allowed off of our deficit to give us a balance somewhere around $220,000 at true deficit. And then I would recommend that we add that, take that from fund balance, giving us somewhere like a $930,000 release of the fund balance, with the recommendation that we immediately go into an austerity budget. We shut down all spending right after the new budget starts. We rarely use all the fund balance we pull out, and I would hate to think that we go out doing all this other work and then end up with a leftover money again at the end of the next school year. So saying that we're going to use $930,000 doesn't necessarily mean we're going to use 930,000, but it's a way of balancing what we have.
So, Mr. Sheen, just to make sure I understand, so presently we have $710,000 of fund balance, right?
Correct.
And what are you proposing to do?
Well, again, I'll walk it real quick, and I'm going to use the 50 because it makes it easier for my math because I got it written down. 831,353. We did the 50 for the foundation, brought it to 881,353. 3,000 for the coach brings it our deficit down to 884,353. 664,144, which was the increase we're allowed by the index.
Say that number again?
664,144. Danielle hasn't given me a dirty look, so I'm still running good numbers. So, and that gives us
They're estimates for now.
You're right. An excellent delta of 220,209. If you add it to the 710,000, that gives us a $930,209 fund balance use. And then would recommend that we still, as we move forward and we start fine-tuning some of the other stuff we got going, that we try to whittle down moving forward. But she's got to have something to start working with, and this balances it out.
And again, these numbers are not final. They can be changed.
We're going to continue to change, because obviously you get a coach that comes down. We're going to take 9,000 out of this year, so it's another 9,000 less.
Yeah, so I came out with 211,209.
Okay. Yeah, you're off a little bit.
Right, right.
So
yeah, you're right. Somewhere, but it's conceptually what I want.
I'm getting there now, okay.
And those numbers are going to not be exact until I put everything in either.
Correct.
Right.
So you're talking roughly 900 out of fund balance.
Right, but conceptually, that's
Yes.
the direction I think that makes the most sense now. And then we can start working on, when we fine-tune the teacher, when we fine-tune the track coach, we can potentially take less of a tax increase. When we fine-tune, some of these other numbers, we can whittle away what we're looking at
Excuse
tax
me,
increase and start
Mr.
moving
Sheen,
that down.
we don't know Act 93 yet.
Right,
We don't know
93
transportation
people
yet.
with us. We don't know the increases that will be awarded to Dr. Otto or Mrs. Penza. It's in at a number that can come off of that. The Act 93 increases that potentially could happen, we'll whittle off of that because a certain percentage is put in the budget. And we can whittle the increase down and still keep the fund balance at that 930.
Correct.
And keep going. I don't think anybody here is going to vote for an increase if we don't use a healthy chunk of our fund balance this year.
Right.
Correct. See, and my comments earlier about the foundation, I will support the foundation if we do this. Meaning, if we use some more of our fund balance, the budget, then I don't really mind spending the $41,000. But I don't think we should spend it if we're not going to.
I think we're going to get something less. I don't want to say significantly, but there's going to be something less than that when we start looking. When we start taking bits and pieces off. But we need to start at some type of a number that we can start looking to finalize this budget as Mrs. Penza puts it together and start whittling down those numbers.
And again, no programs.
No program to be around.
Would also add.
That's a big thing for me. Yes.
Would also add for the benefit of the board and the public that the state has not finalized their budget yet, so that could result in change.
It could potentially go up or down.
Well, I just wanted to throw that out there that that's a placeholder, frankly, until they pass their budget.
And that's probably not going to be till June 30th, because
Right.
we already have to have ours passed.
Right. Well, we go through that every year, but I just want to put that out there that that's another variable. The inside information that I have, for what it's worth, it's probably not going to really change much.
No.
So, but I think it's important to represent that it is a placeholder at this point, just like the other figures that we've put in there until it's voted and final.
Look at some of the stuff Mr. Potts has with transportation, which we're working on yet. That 664 is going to go down. You fine tune some of the other stuff. That number is going to start going down as we start putting some of this other stuff in.
Mr. Sheen, we did do one thing. Middle school was a class that was taken out. I mean, I don't want to mislead anybody that there were no programs. I'm sorry.
Substituted. Was substituted.
Again, but I'm making sure everybody understands. I didn't want to come across saying we did.
I mean, I've talked to a lot of folks. The first 3 weeks to 1 month of your language in high school basically covers most everything that they cover in that introductory course. And we're going to be putting in a reading program which will strengthen our reading, which we always, and the administration at the middle school as well as Mrs. Trainer are very high on, and you can never get enough. If you don't learn to read at this level, you're not going to read as you go on. So we're not really eliminating, we're going to be strengthening something else.
Any comments from other board members?
Yeah, I would just agree with what Mr. Sheen said in regards to the program at the middle school. And I think this books program, I think that's going to be very beneficial. I think that's an interesting program. I think that can help kids out a lot.
Well, I mean, I'd have to say I'm not in favor of the tax increase, and I think this stance that there shouldn't be any cuts in programming whatsoever is short-sighted. I think that we have an issue going forward next year and the year after that and the year after that. And what I've witnessed over the last 3 years is we look at this budget and we just cut out absolutely what we need to get by from one year to the next. And I think had we taken more aggressive action earlier, we'd be in a better position than we are today. And I think we need to be looking long-term, and I think that may require additional cuts in programming. And if you're going to cut a program next year, I think you might as well start cutting it this year. And that affords more capital available to address an ever-growing budget. And I think the problem we have is our expenses outrun our revenues going forward, 1 year to the next to the next. And the only way...
But yeah, my question is, kids applying for colleges, they need that stuff, or any
Well,
course.
let me ask you the question. What do you propose to do next year?
Again,
You're going to not cut any programming next year?
Next year, you don't know what the state will do.
Well,
You don't know what, I mean, you don't
I do know what our expenses are going to do next year.
That you do know, but you don't know about revenue next year.
I know
So
that
why
our
would I
expenses
cut-
are going up over an additional $2 million just
But
in
you're cutting
contracts.
You're potentially cutting programs we might not have to cut next year.
But the
Oh,
thing
you
is,
know?
I just brought up a possible way of doing it. If you've got a different way, Mr. Basil, I mean, I'd be more than happy to.
I would suggest eliminating some programs, and I would suggest using more fund balance. For the last 2 years, we have set aside fund balance, upwards to $1.5 million, and we didn't use it.
I don't have
And
a
if it's
problem-
okay to use $1.5 million over the last 2 years, why is it not okay to use it this year?
We didn't use $1.5 million.
Well, we set aside $750,000 1 year. We set aside another $700 some odd thousand a year prior to that. We didn't even use
I'm
those
recommending
two things.
$930,000.
Correct. Which is more than we've ever done.
Right. But again, all I'm asking is if you're looking, if you're talking program, put it out there. I mean, let's
Tell us
talk.
which
I don't
program.
know what we
What
got.
we've got on here an elementary band program, $117,000.
Okay, quickly.
We could
Who's
stratify,
picking that up?
huh?
Ask the board, show of hands. That way you know right off the bat how many people want to give an elementary band.
I think we need to talk about it a little bit more before we just jump right to voting.
Well, okay, what do you want to talk about it? You either get rid of it or you don't.
Well, I think we could look at, we have to talk about it. Are we going to talk about it tonight? We want to
Talk about it now. That's my question. Talk about it now.
We
Okay, talk
have
about
to give, before we leave tonight, she's got to have a solid
Correct.
walk
So-
budget.
so talk about it.
Because she's got to have it done by Friday.
Well, I have to have time to get it ready for you guys for next week, for
Right.
your board packet.
So,
So I really need like this week to be able to work on it.
Looking at what the state has done this year and what they've done in the past, I'm not anticipating any
No, I don't think
spectacular
we-
increases in revenue
okay, but
next year.
what do you have to discuss? Either you support it or you don't. So, again, how many people want to cut an elementary band? Raise
It's
your
not a
hand.
matter of want, it's a matter of
Well,
have
okay, how
to.
many people agree to do it? Move it from the right side to the left side. I think, right, Mr. Sheen, that's your question. How many people want to move from the right side to the left side?
If we're looking at the future and how we're going to run things in the future, and we're looking at our contracts and when they're coming up, I still believe that we need to have not even a committee, professional negotiators to start looking at those and tearing them apart for us and getting some.
But that's not going to happen. That's not happening in the next 2 months. So the question in the next 2 months is, do you want elementary band on the right or the left side? I mean, Mr. Basil, we want to know an answer.
I think you owe it to the taxpayers.
Okay, well,
I
then
think
again.
the taxpayers have been bearing the burden of bad decisions for the last 4 or 5 years, and every year they see the taxes go up. And I see my neighbors selling their houses. People who lived there for 40 years are now forced to sell their houses because they can't afford their tax increases
I'm
anymore.
not disagreeing with that
Social
at all.
Security hasn't gone up. but their taxes and their cost of living have.
But
And
again, we also spend $50,000 on a potential foundation, and I'll support the foundation, but that's a potential. But if for another $65,000, you're not going to hold elementary band.
How I look at
another
it, is it
65.
really a big,
Yeah, I mean,
The
67.
delta, you just did the delta.
I just took the
But
two
I think they're completely unrelated. You could
Okay,
take
well,
that
okay.
correlation between any two line items in the budget. I mean,
But
I don't
then
think you
again,
could
okay,
tie the
then
two
ask-
together.
Ask the question. Oh,
Is
what's
it
your
not-
rid of-
I think you need to look at these independently.
Okay,
Because
independently then.
That program, the band, and not that I'm saying I want to cut it, but that's going to continue to increase because of the cost.
Okay, then again, my initial question is a simple question. It should be yes or no.
we're still talking about it. I'm not ready to say yes or no until we continue talking about it. It's not a decision that can be made in
How
5
long
minutes. This is
we've
a
been
big
talking
decision.
about? It's been on the agenda for the last 3
It has, but
months.
this is the first time we're talking about it in one of these meetings. My opinion, I want to know, is it really an assault on music education, on public education, asking a student to wait 2 years to play an instrument? I don't think it is.
Okay.
That's my opinion. I think we do owe it to cut these expenditures down a bit more. I mean, going into the future, are we really going to be able to afford all these programs? Looking at what the state has given us this year, looking at what they're going to give us next year, most likely, I don't think they're going to give us a whole lot more. You know what? If they do, we can add these programs back. We're going to have to make tough decisions soon. I think we can start looking at making those decisions now.
I agree with you that we need to make tough decisions, but I will disagree that once you cut it, it won't come back.
Not necessarily. I mean, when we create a program, does it ever go away? You can look at it that way, too.
Yes.
Look at full day kindergarten.
Well, that is something
I
to
can
go
count the number of courses we've added to our course at the high school. If you've taken ecology this year, it doesn't exist anymore.
Well, I'd also counter that with you institute a tax increase that never goes away either.
Right.
And you watch people's taxes go up by over 80% in the last 8 years here. You talk about people moving out of the school district, guess what? You can go buy a house in Boyertown School District where the kids are scoring a lot higher than ours are, and they're paying a third of the taxes we are. Same thing in Owen J. Roberts, Twin Valley, Ole, Exeter. Our real estate taxes are some of the, I think they're in the top 5 in terms of Berks County overall.
We also spend, we're in the lowest
Per pupil.
percentile per student expenditure.
Per pupil.
Also.
We have no industry. Plain and simple fact.
I hear what you're saying, but obviously what we're
Okay.
doing is we're trying to add. There's been a campaign for a long time to provide as much as we possibly can to the kids. I think that's a wonderful thing, but we've obviously spent more than we can afford. And I'm looking at a budget that's growing at $3 to $4 million every year going forward, and a revenue stream that's only growing at 1. And I'm sitting there saying to myself, well, how do you reconcile this next year and the year after that and the year after that if you don't address the heart of the problem, which is programming? That's where the costs are. It's in our salaries and benefits, and the only way you can reduce salaries and benefits, if you're not going to get any concessions from the contractual partners, is you have to move forward with cuts in programming.
Other than elementary band, I don't think we can cut any more program now. It's too late. We didn't go to PDE. Correct?
On the middle.
Mrs. Trainer, am I
we
right?
have to
Mr.
take
Dr.
the
Otto, am I
fall.
right? We can't cut any more program this year, other than the elementary band. Right? Am I correct in that assumption? Because we did not go to PDE, so we're talking about cutting other programs that we cannot even do for next year anyway, other than band. We didn't put those, we didn't go to PDE. So again, I'm not disagreeing with you.
Nothing's stopping us from going to PDE right now. You can always draw up a letter, send it to PDE, and see what kind of response you get.
Unless you have an idea what classes you want to get rid of. I mean, you say that, but give us hard and fact which ones you want to get rid of.
Mr. McCullough, I am not a school administrator, okay? I'm a board member, all right? And I understand your passion for keeping all the programming intact, but it doesn't meet the fiscal reality that we're facing. And I look back at what we've done over the last 2 or 3 years where people fought tooth and nail over a librarian, or tooth and nail over an aide, or tooth and nail over something else. And somehow we've managed to survive by making those cuts. And had we made those cuts 2 years ago or 3 years ago, when we should have, we would be millions of dollars to the benefit today, as opposed to where we are now. And all I'm saying is, if you're looking forward at additional program cuts next year and the year after that and the year after that, I'm saying you need to start taking the scalpel out now, not because it's a great thing, not because it's a wonderful thing to do. It's not. It's a terrible thing to do. But at the end of the day, you have a responsibility to the taxpayers of this school district to do the fiscally responsible thing.
Tomorrow's May 1st. We have 60 days to do this. If you don't have a particular class you're looking at getting rid of and you want to go to PD, what classes tonight, you need to identify those tonight.
I have suggested many times over the last 2 years, and even this year, that we go back to PDE and we talk about restructuring our strategic plan as a way of unshackling our administrators to give them the ability to take a look at what we can do going forward in the years to come.
Okay,
Okay?
that's fine. So
I'm still trying to get a sense as to what other options we have. Listen, if we were looking at a $3 or $4 million or $10 million budget cuts, like the city of Reading or some other places, you'd find the money somehow, or you declare bankruptcy. Okay? Those would be your options.
I'm not denying anything you said.
Okay.
All I'm saying is
So-
we're 60 days away, and we're almost starting the game now. If you want to go to PD and the strategic plan, that's great, but that should have been done in January. If you want to go back and curtail any of our curriculum classes, great. I think it's willing to discuss it. I'm more than willing to discuss it. But again, you're 60 days away now. There aren't too many options you have at this point in time.
I personally, I do not have a problem if you want to say, hell with the tax increase, let's take another $664,000 out of fund balance and call it a day. If you feel comfortable and the business office feels comfortable with that, then do it. Okay? I am sitting here right now as a parent of 2 students in this school district. We can't afford to cut more program out of this, but we're not going to send anybody to college. I also understand your comment that we owe it to the taxpayers of the district, where you have neighbors that are moving out. I'm being deluged with emails saying, don't cut band, raise our taxes, do something. Don't do this, don't do that. Now, you may not be getting those, I'm getting those, okay? And it may have a lot to do with that the majority of the people that use these programs are Amity Township residents.
Correct.
Got that, okay? You want to see the property value of your houses go down even more? Start cutting your program. And you can't disagree with that.
I do disagree with that. I think it's very easy to reach into somebody else's pocket and say, hey, I'm going to raise your taxes to pay for something that I want, as opposed to saying, I'll reach into my own pocket and contribute money to the school district by voluntarily doing that to pay for a program.
Let me finish, okay? I got the point, okay? We got the point. We need to look at programs. We're a little late to be looking at cutting anything else in this budget. We can go back to PD with some ideas, but what do we got left? I mean, honestly, what do you have left? You got nothing left. I looked at the staffing of the classes. There's almost no class at the high school that isn't at the limit, unless you want to look at some of the honors courses. And if you cut the honors course, you still got to put that body in a seat somewhere, which isn't going to work out. We sat and looked at that. So I don't know where you're going to come unless you've got some file that says these are the programs we can cut. The only programs you can cut is athletics, the 4th and 5th grade band. Okay, take $117,000 out this year. I don't know. Next year we're going to have the same problem. Okay, I don't know where you're going to come. I've looked just as hard as you have looked. I don't want to raise taxes. I voted against every tax increase we had except one where we got down to the point where we couldn't. We had to do it. That was last year. I don't know. Yes, I'm a little disappointed we didn't get help from our contractual partners. It is what it is. We have to live with that.
What will the elementary kids be doing if we cut the band out?
They stay in their class. They get pulled out of, right, Mr. McCall, they get pulled out of the
So
class.
they could stay in math longer?
Correct, Mrs. Trainer? They would just stay in a normal class. If we get rid of elementary band, what would the students be doing?
Well, there's different configurations. How do your kids get pulled out for band?
They get pulled out of a 30-minute lesson during the week. And we have band rehearsal first thing in the morning, so they do not get pulled out.
They don't miss any class. So what would they do if we get rid of elementary band? What would they fill that time with?
They're in a class already. They would already be in a
Okay.
class. Now,
Okay. So
fourth
okay.
graders who
So
are
just stay in their
currently
normal class.
taking instruments, they would, if there would be no 5th grade band, they would have lost out on a year.
Okay.
And they probably will not have then a 6th grade band in 2 years. Because they probably will not come back.
Do we know that? Do we know they won't come back?
No, you don't know that.
There is a percentage, there's research out there that if something usually would happen, there is a percentage
And who pays for the instruments? For the
Parents.
So they individually purchase or
Either
rent
purchase or rent.
an instrument? So they could actually purchase or rent an instrument at any time?
Take private lessons.
Now, if this program, let's just say we were to eliminate elementary band, is there a chance that the community might come together and neighborhood kids can start practicing their instruments together? That could always happen. If this program's really worthwhile, it'll come back in the
They
community.
can gather at the street corner and they can practice.
Yeah, that's fine, whatever.
No, I think the point that he's raising is, I mean, I think at some point, look, given the financial constraints that we're facing, and I'm not saying that taxes are not part of the solution. They have to be. We have no other choice.
Right.
I mean, if you look at our expenses going forward versus our revenue stream, you're going to have to increase taxes going forward, even make an attempt to keep pace with our contractual obligations. So I'm not ruling out taxes altogether, but I'm saying that programming cuts have to be part of the solution. And I think they have to be part of the solution now, not later. And I don't see any reason why something like that, or maybe next year or this year, we need to be looking at some of the extracurricular activities as well. I don't know what else you're going to do to balance the budget. And in other schools, in private schools and other places, these things are all extras. These things are all extras. You don't get this as part of your tuition when you go to a private school. This stuff is stuff that you have to reach in your pocket and pay for extra if you want your kids to be in an elementary band or elementary, I mean, they don't even have elementary sports programs and things of that nature and activities most times. You have to pay for those things as extra. I get it. Public school, we're to fund public education, and that's important. And these are some of the fun things about public education. But at the same time, I have to wonder when foreclosures are an all-time high, REOs are an all-time high, the economy still hasn't gotten any better, people still, their jobs haven't improved. The first lever you go to pull is real estate taxes. I just have a hard time with that. And I think we need to be looking at reducing the size of the school district so that we can give everyone an opportunity to catch up, let our revenue streams catch up to our expenses.
Now, Mr. Basil, you mentioned earlier that if we would have made some program alterations in previous years, we would not have as deep as a hole this year to fill because these programs expand and they get cost more and more in money, right? Contractually and in other aspects too, I'm sure, correct?
Yes.
So if we were to, if we were not to eliminate this year, next year, it could cost more. And we have to cut more programming or more different, or sports or extracurriculars, which I think I'm open to that too. I think we need to look at extracurriculars and sports.
May I just...
The band number we have this year is significantly less than what was put on the table last year. I don't know why, but it is a significantly smaller number than it was last year. It was $200,000 last year. And I don't know why, but it is less than it was.
Cost of the individual.
Yeah, the cost of the individual. Okay.
I just want to give everybody a chance to catch their breath. I just want to make sure that the administration point of view is represented here. I do believe, the superintendent, we have brought to you the cuts that we think can be made to maintain the integrity of the educational program. If, in fact, at some point next year we have to take a deeper look at it, then so be it. But at this point, to maintain the program and to run a program for students for next year, we're done. Band is certainly out there on the table, but we can't combine electives anymore at the high school. That's not an option. We can't do anything more with the middle school program. We're already recommending to take out the foreign language from the middle school. So I just want to represent from the administrative standpoint, we believe we have brought to the board everything that we can at this point.
Okay, getting back to, first of all, make a concession, take $1 million out of fund balance and lower the index. That's fine. We can even discuss something along those lines. The other thing is, several years ago, this board voted a no tax increase. And that's probably one of my biggest decisions. Not that I want to raise everybody's taxes, but had I done that, we wouldn't have even been in this big a hole.
Yeah, but Kevin, we did a no tax increase with no cuts whatsoever, and we still threw a fund balance. We still threw a $143,000 surplus.
The point is, by doing that 1 year, you never recapture. So, in fairness, I understand taxpayers don't want to get hit. Hey, we all pay taxes in this room. We're all sitting here paying taxes. So my feeling is, if you want to make some kind of concession among us, round off to $1 million out of fund balance. It's $990,000 roughly, right, Mr. McLaughlin? 910. Raised it up to $1 million out of fund balance, which gives us still some fund balance, and give the taxpayers a break to what, $5,500. So you're talking about 80% of the index. 70. I don't know. Sorry, I didn't do it off my. I'm doing this off my head, so don't hold me to that number. At least then you're making a concession. You pass some back on.
We can do that, but we also need to, we're going to have to look at program cuts at some
But,
point, because what
okay,
else is there left?
okay.
When is that point?
When do you do it?
I want to do it tonight.
Okay, then again, my question is, well, the only thing you can really do tonight is ban. So the consensus, save it or let it go. That's really your bottom line tonight. PDE, you can't do anything else unless you go to PDE. So again, show of hands. Sorry, I'm not running the meeting, but if you ban in or out.
I like your idea of not doing as much taxes.
That's fine.
You know, trying to figure out how to balance it a little bit, and I know it's not a popular thing, but are we able to increase our activities fees to help offset?
I think you increase activity fees, you're going to see less kids do it.
Yes.
I think that having the heist in the county is actually hurting some of our programs.
That'll be some help to start cutting those programs. That's what's
Correct.
gonna happen.
It will start to cut those. You're talking $500 a month for some families.
I know.
Well,
I have
okay.
my kids there in programs, so.
Okay.
Plus we're
But I'm
back.
just saying,
We're back to, you increase the activity fee, you're going to have less participation. We saw that this year. Or we didn't get close to the forecast.
Correct.
So you're not going to get you can increase it $50, and you may budget another $10,000 revenue. You may only get half of that because the kids will just drop out.
Correct.
Last year, there was discussion to eliminate middle school athletics. We didn't talk about that this year. Can we talk about that? It's listed on here as an $85,000 cost savings.
Again, quick show of hands, yes or no?
How long?
I mean, I think they're on there. I think they're on the right side for a reason.
Yeah.
I think the majority of us are not willing to discuss those, except for, again, me, I'm speaking, except for the band.
If you eliminate the middle school athletics, that'll get you $85,000, but you're also going to lose a significant amount of
So this is not a net savings, this is just...
No.
that's just headcount.
It should be a net with the activity fees too, because that's really how much money we're bringing in.
Well, let's remember too that it
There's
says
no
there
way to
options
be able
not
to net
recommended.
it. And how do I know who's doing middle school sports, who's doing, there's
Well,
no
next year
way.
you don't know, but this year you know who's doing it.
I don't know.
We don't get that information?
I don't have that
Oh.
information.
So again, $1 million out of fund balance. Considering we threw a surplus, like Mr. Sheen says, we usually end up not using it all.
We can go any way you want.
Yeah, but I think
We
that's
can sit here and again, we can sit and say, if you want to work, let's work whatever way you want to do it.
Well, what if we did this? What if we move elementary band program over and then we work to bring it back? I mean, what's the difficulty in that? I mean, we haven't locked anything in stone, but then you work to bring it back to the other side.
Okay, again, show of hands.
Work to bring it, well, the easiest way to bring it back to the other side is to take 117.
Well, no, I'm saying though is through
Yeah,
transportation.
exactly.
Well, you were making a point that, hey, look, whether it's transportation concessions or it's Act 93 concessions or it's something else, that you might be able to work the taxes down. I'm suggesting just the opposite. You say, look, move over programming and then say to the administration and whoever else, hey, look, this isn't about raising taxes, it's about saving program.
Yeah, and maybe that'll
And
help us get more concessions. If we know this is
Work it back the other way. Perhaps you can bring it back to the other side.
Maybe that group really likes the elementary band. Maybe it'll give us...
I'm against that. I'm against that, but I'm against moving band over.
Okay, let's see a show of hands. Who's interested in moving band over? Raise your hand in favor, yes or no?
and then bringing it back.
Yeah, bring it back.
Okay, so only 3 out of 8, so it's not moving over.
We're going to have to look at making these decisions at some point, though, because in the future, we're not going to be getting, in my opinion, a whole lot more money from the state.
I didn't want to lose it to begin with, but as long as it can find its way back.
Yeah.
That's the point.
I don't think you can say that. I don't think you can say that. We brought things back under the budget. How many times have we done
What's
that?
on the table coming back from transportation, it's not going to find its way back.
If you had the money to hold on to full-day kindergarten just one more year, would you have done it?
Yes.
No. No,
Absolutely.
I don't think that's.
Because I didn't know what, I don't know what, I wouldn't know what, I don't even know what next year's going to be. I don't know what our revenue is.
Do we think next year is going to be better? Do we really think that?
I would not have held on to it. You're
I don't
setting
think-
parents up for I think you're setting parents up for a false expectation, and they're better off making plans and making arrangements and planning. What people are more upset about is the unknown. If they know what we're going to do, they can plan for it and budget for it and save for it. Then they're all right with it. That's my personal belief. I think when you leave them hanging until the last minute and say, well, it could come in, it could come back, we never know, you're better off cutting it out and letting people plan for it. And if we can somehow save the program or reintroduce it, then hallelujah. But if you can't, then you set the expectations where they should be.
The reason why I would have voted no and left it the way it is, for 8 years we keep hearing the state's going to help out. And
They're not going to help.
Again, okay, it false hope, but maybe one of these times they'll actually come through and do it.
The state's $3 billion in debt.
Again, I'm just saying, that's my
Let me
weird...
ask you, let's take this from another direction, okay?
Sure.
What type of a tax increase would we be comfortable with putting out there, and work up from there? Because I hate when we run the number, what's left is what they get.
Well, that's what we're doing now.
I know, but let's go the other way. What would we be comfortable with?
Well, let me interject and let me say, I mean, my development, people are losing their homes. If cutting some of these programs will help people stay in their homes, any seniors who are living on a fixed income, every dollar matters, especially when choosing to heat their homes, to pay for their medications. Every dollar matters. We need to we have to consider that. Not just the children in the schools, but the people who are paying for the schools. We need to think about that. I think a 0% tax hike is where we need to start up now. I think that is the responsible thing to do.
Okay, Mrs. Penza, are you so the projection of 3.7 is still our projected fund balance?
That's as of the end of March.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. So at the end of March.
That's still
okay.
3 months of operating.
Okay, so back to your again, I would not go below $2 million.
$2 million.
I mean, I'm sorry, 2.7 million. Well, I'm comfortable giving $1 million. I don't want to get into Twin Valley.
Again, I appreciate, okay, but Mr. Kurtz, I appreciate your but in reality is,
it ain't
as
gonna
Mr.
happen.
Basil said, it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
I'm just putting out my opinion.
I know
what
your
I believe
opinion,
my
but in
institution
reality, and I hate him as much as everybody else does, and I got ridiculed, and I got snide comments from press board members when I did not vote for one. From the right from the beginning, the guy you sit next to me, but we'll let that go. We know what we need to do. I just want to say, let's start somewhere, work up, and then we can always work that one down once we feel comfortable with all the placeholders. The placeholder being, how much fund balance do we feel comfortable with using? That's the biggest white elephant in the room. How much fund balance do we feel comfortable putting out there? Because once we know that, then we can work the other ones and look at passing a program, or we can look at something else. But if we don't know what we really seriously have left, it's hard to say 500,000, 400,000, whatever, but we need to come up with what amount of that fund balance. And if we're at 1.7, what do we need to operate July and August? I keep hearing the number 2 million.
I thought it was about 2.1.
It's about $2 million, yeah,
Okay.
2 point
So I would
something.
feel comfortable taking 1.5 million, put it out, and then work our number backwards the other way.
The reason why I won't support that, once you use it, you might not get it back.
Well, we're not going to use it.
No.
The problem. We never use the fund.
Yeah, I understand that, but we haven't yet, but there's always that one area. So, okay, I'll go up to $1 million. I'm not comfortable with
Okay,
the one
but,
area.
we never use the fund balance.
Okay.
We have to use the fund balance. I mean, we've thrown a positive number in the 7 years I've been on the board. We've thrown a positive every single year. I think one, and that was just about balanced.
Okay.
And we raise the taxes, or we use fund balance, and everybody out here thinks it's funny money because we're going to use $750,000 and charge you guys $750,000 in tax increase at the end of the year. Oh, look, we still got $750,000 we didn't touch.
The fund
And
balance
we understand the tax issue because the tax issue, as like anything else, is cumulative. Okay, it's 750 this year, it's 750 next year, so it's there. But at the same time, so is the fund balance. So we keep calling it our savings account. Well, it's time to dip into the savings account a little bit and use it. I don't want to drain it to zero.
This is what some governments refer to as a rainy day fund, right? This is a rainy day, and I think we really should
Again,
go into that.
my personal thing is $1 million.
Yeah, that's true.
I feel comfortable with $1 million. $1.5 million, I think, is a little too high. That's me personally. Like I said, that way it takes more of the fund balance and it helps the taxpayers a little bit.
But if we go to $1.5 million, that's almost no tax increase.
And that's what the money's there for.
Well, no, it's not necessarily not to have it to offset
no, it's not there.
Any type.
It's there to plug a gap.
And this is a gap. So it's there. We have it there for a reason. What are we just hoarding the money for?
We're not hoarding it.
You have to have it.
About
You have to have it.
$1.2 million, something in between that $1.5 million and $1 million that Kevin's comfortable, Mr. Collins comfortable.
Again.
You know,
Well, here's the other thing here's the other thing, Mr. Wolf, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. You can put 1.2 in there now, and guess what? Again, when you go back to the thing, you still have 2 months. You still have 2 months. That's the problem we're having. We got to put something out there by whatever, beginning of May, and we still have a chance to change it. So, again, I personally think 1.5 is a little too high, but that's.
Again, I want to start with some type of placeholder there, because you can't walk backwards. You can't tell me you can't hear me.
I can't hear Mr. Cole.
Okay.
And I can't hear.
Okay, well, we'll try. The mic is not always.
Come closer. Everybody get up, come down closer.
Just certain people.
Okay, well, listen, we don't all have mics, and we don't all remember to pick the mic and hold it right next to our mouths. It's a big room, I get it, but there's a lot of seats down front. You guys can all move down here, and you'll hear a lot better whether we got a mic in front of us or not. Okay, well, we're going to do our best to speak into microphones, but at the end of the day, you know, you guys have the opportunities to move down another 100 feet, and you might hear things a little bit more clearly.
Again, with the mic closer, so everybody all I want to do is take the maximum amount we need to put. Right now we had 710,000. Let's put something in there as a number we all feel comfortable with using, and then start walking back to see where we are. If we use 1.5 million, which Mr. McCullough isn't comfortable with, some of us seem to be, or somewhere between the two, the index number, the tax number goes down, okay? And we run. But to sit here and keep banding back and forth where I don't want a tax increase, we got to eliminate program, we got to put something in there from the rainy day fund or the fund balance, or whatever you want to call it, that we can start walking with. And that's all I'm trying to do is get some type of consensus on that number. I want 1.5 million. Mr. McCullough's not comfortable with it.
I'm comfortable with 1.5 million.
Or something in between.
Yeah,
Somebody make a suggestion.
I don't know if I'm comfortable with the 1.5.
1.3?
1.2.
I'd say 1.2, somewhere.
1.25?
I mean, that would save that mill down to what?
Well, that's, everybody comfortable with 1.25? Mr. Basil, you're a little more attuned to the finances than the rest of us are. Are you comfortable with 1.25?
I'm not comfortable with any of it, to be honest with you. I mean, look, I recognize that taxes are going to have to be part of the solution. I'm just trying to figure out a way that we can minimize the tax increases going forward, spend some of the fund balance, but be sensitive to the fact that we do need working capital and going forward to meet our fiscal requirements, particularly in the summer months, and just try to get through to the other side somehow. And so I'm wrestling with that, and my gut always says no tax, no tax, no tax, but I recognize that there needs to be some sort of a tax increase. What's the right number? I don't think there is a definitive answer on that.
I put that 664 out there. I'm not going to vote on a budget that has a $664,000 tax increase. But I just did it to get us something to start to work with, a path forward.
I think with the 1.2, I think we're going to satisfy everyone that's in this party.
1.2 leaves a $385,000 balance.
Okay.
So you're talking half the index, roughly.
Half the index. And that leaves you with
2.5.
Roughly 2.5 million
What else happened?
fund balance.
So you're going to get 2.5.
It leaves you with a $2,449,295 fund balance.
Right now, and again, it's an estimate.
It's an estimate. And you have a $385,353 tax increase, or 0.385 mils.
And again, I'm betting that the foundation gives us something. I'm betting that we're going to throw a surplus this year, or we'll throw a surplus next year. We seem to be throwing surpluses that we never expected.
Can I just comment on that? From an administrative standpoint, we're told to freeze the budget. That's how those things come about. We don't spend the money. So
we're going to tell you to freeze the budget right now.
well, no, I understand that, but I don't want it to look like we've done something irresponsibly from the administrative standpoint.
It never implied that.
When I was speaking with another board member from somewhere else in the county, they mentioned that they were asking their department to go back and do across-the-board spending cuts within departments. Have we done that for next year's budget? Have we told our departments we need to cut 5% and let them figure out where to cut?
All of the budgets the only budget that was up was special education. We've already cut $200,000 out of that. Everybody else,
2 years ago,
excuse me, I think most departments are down about 2 to 3%.
it was 2 years ago, we chopped 20% out of it.
But the directive this year, each department was don't even come in with an increase, come in
Right.
with 2% or more decrease.
Right.
So we did pretty much do that, 5%.
That's already in the numbers you've seen.
All right. How many people, let's just move this thing forward. So how many people are in favor of the suggestion of Mr. Wolf of 1.2? Raise your hands.
I want to go through the numbers here. before
Okay.
we do that. So if we go to 1.2, we're talking 500 additional thousand out of fund balance, which would leave it at 3.2.
It'd leave your fund balance at 2 point, all in, if we are on target with our fund balance estimates, fund balance next year would be $2,449,295.
I'm not following you with that, so that's why.
Okay. We have $3.6 million in fund balance. That's what we're projecting we're going to have at the end of this fiscal year.
Okay, I'm looking at $3,792,295.
But that's,
Correct.
the 710 is not taken out of that number.
Well, the 710 that's
You
over.
have to take off the 710 out, leaves about 3, and then another $500,000, 2.5. That's,
Right.
sorry, you know what I'm saying?
Closed in my mind.
Right, I'm trying to show you the total fund balance that I think will be
That,
left.
yeah,
No, it's a good
that
question.
710 you have to
Good
subtract.
question.
But we're still talking 41,000 for foundation, right, Mr. Mason?
Yeah, I mean, it's 41, yes.
41.
41 the cross-country coach, and then, so we're running that number down to 884,353. And then we were looking at another $500,000.
Your total fund balance, to get the 1.2 million, it's 1,159,000, and then plus another 41,000 for the foundation. You follow me?
Right, yep. So we're at a 300
It's 385,353 is the budget deficit.
Are you doing the 125 or are you doing the 12?
1.2, I think, is what Mr. Wolf suggested.
So 385,353 would be the academic.
Just under 400,000, correct.
And we have several things yet that can lower that. We have hoping something from transportation.
The foundation might not cost as much as we're putting into it.
Right.
And
We
they
have
can bring it
transportation, we have the administrative increases that are budgeted at one number and will come in at less or at that number, so there's some number there. I'm not sure what that is, but we won't know until Dr. Otto makes those recommendations. So that this number here could sink below 350.
Okay, let's go. Show of hands, is there a consensus on that number, 1.2 for the time being? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay.
In the future, for next year, we're going to need to look at making program alterations. We should do that. We should be prepared to do that.
Well, I don't think we're done with the discussion yet. I mean, I think you saw tonight that the majority of the folks here do not want to cut any more program. I'm not sure their position is going to change going forward this year, but obviously we need to work hard.
Again, I think a lot of it had to do with there was a way home. I don't think next year there's going to be a way home because there's no more low-hanging fruit next year. I mean, we've already chopped the tree down and sold it for firewood, so there's nothing left.
And technically next year you're starting the 1.2 plus the 790,000
Right.
for the bond easement in the hole, right up front.
I mean, it's possible that
Before
everything under that
contractual
not
obligation.
recommended is going to have to be
Right.
on the table.
Right.
It'll go from not recommended to no choice if the scenario presents itself. So,
Any other comment from board members? Other than this just is miserable discussion.
It's not a great, I mean, we all tend to get emotional about this, but it's not an easy discussion.
I guess the bigger concern is, we talked about where the gaps are this year. All I see is cost of what next year is and the money that we're going to have to pay. And if we all agree that we're delaying the inevitable on the program.
We are. There's no doubt. We're delaying the inevitable next year.
You're
Hoping that,
I'm hoping.
we're hoping.
That's the only thing I can say. I'm hoping that the state or someone else comes through. You're right.
Because next year,
Well, even next year, Mr. Basil, what did you forecast? 2 million, 3 million?
This is preliminary, but I mean, you're looking at least a $2.1 million increase in our contractual obligations. Plus another $2 million.
We're looking at 4 million, so even if we eliminate every program on the right side, we're buying $8.
So we're $3.5 million in the hole, and we didn't start yet.
Right.
Correct. But last
So
year
we eliminate every one of
was
these programs, and we take everything we can do with the index and the exceptions, we're still monitoring.
Correct. That's why I want to keep some fund balance. Sorry. I know you took a vote.
Well, it's not not done.
I understand that. Again,
Jesus,
I don't
we've
mean
got
to
60
be-
more days. I got a feeling that this thing's going to keep changing. So,
And again,
Threw that out there.
as we've done in the past, when we start looking, again, I can bring it up again. We've got money coming potentially if we can reach agreement on transportation. We have 18 administrators, Dr. Otto and Mrs. Penza, and again, we're not
putting any pressure on anybody.
putting any pressure, but there is a number that's put in the budget that comes in, and where it comes in, and if it doesn't get all used, it doesn't get all used. So there is some money that potentially could come back.
I have one question for board members to consider. Since basically you're looking at a half a mil index, increase. What happens if something reverses in the next 60 days? Are you willing to go higher?
I am always willing to consider the possibilities
Okay, I'm
right up
saying to
until
you,
June
going out to the
30th.
public, when they're going to read in the paper tomorrow that we're looking at a half a
We're looking
50%
at a
index.
third of the bill index.
Okay, that's fine. I'm just saying to you, you're doing a third now for the next 60 days. In the end of 60 days, it has to go to a half or 3/4. Are you willing to go up?
If in 60
I'm
days
just
the
asking.
state comes back and cuts us by $300,000, there's no other place to take it.
Okay,
Okay.
that's why, I'm just asking, that's why, again, showing the millage now, you can go the
Look,
other.
my position is you can never take everything off the table until June 30th. That's
Okay,
my
but I'm
position.
telling
So
you, it all depends how the papers present it to the
I
public.
understand the papers are here in the audience now, and
Okay,
you guys
that's all
can
I'm asking.
understand that the board is still discussing the budget and nothing's set in
And
stone.
it still
And
could go higher, that's what I'm saying.
index could go higher,
Index could
programming
go
could
higher.
go in,
Okay, that's fine.
fund balance could change. There's all kinds of
I
things
just
that
don't
could
want to say
happen.
we all agree that it's going to be, a 50% increase in index, and then 2 months later, we all go up, you know what, we need to go up another 0.25%, and the public's going to go crazy.
Harrisburg could go back and
You're absolutely right. Again, I'm just playing the opposite way, that's all I'm saying.
And Mr. McCullough, you and I talked about this, my bigger concern is not this year, it's not next year, it's the year after. If this economy ever starts to turn around, we're not going to be able to get out ahead of it with the developments that are on the books of Amity and what do we get, 2, 3 in Union. If they start taking off, we're not going to be able to get out ahead of it before those tax dollars are right.
And by the way, just a note, it's just been reported lawmakers are going back to discuss Corbett's proposals to lessen his cuts. It's reported at ReadingEagle.com.
Yeah, but he can still veto it.
Again, I'm just letting you know. Again, that's why I said we're open here for the next 60 days.
Hey, look, more money's coming from the state, all the better.
And
Absolutely, I agree with you.
We've all read about the property tax eliminations and everything else. Now, people are starting putting in competing bills to compete against that, so the game's being played. So, you may not see that.
It's just like revenue for the gambling. We had record.
We were supposed to get all of it, and now we get
Where's
rid
that?
of it.
Back when they first instituted the sales tax, it was supposed to completely
100% for
public education.
Yes.
And look where we are now. I mean, this is the state's responsibility. It's not local taxpayers' responsibility.
Right.
That's what the Pennsylvania Constitution says.
All right, so Mr. what are we going here? So
I think at this point, we have to wait for Transportation Act 93 to come back to us with any fruits of their labors. And if not, then if there's any more suggestions or ideas forthcoming from administration or staff, we'd love to hear from them. Otherwise, I'd say if there's no more questions or comments from the board, we take comments from the public.
Mrs. Spence has got what she needs to put together the first unofficial first draft.
Can she read that back so everyone's clear?
Yeah, I'd like to get a summary of what we all.
Do you want me to go through it, or do you have it? Go ahead, if you have
I
it.
mean, it's 1.2 million of fund balance, 41,000 additional expense for the foundation, and 3,000 or whatever it really is for the coach, for the cross-country coach.
Correct, those are the only
And then
changes.
the difference is made up by a tax increase.
That's right.
With those numbers right now is approximately 385,000.
That's a nice sound. Okay. Any other comments from board members, questions? All right, seeing none, comments, questions from the public? Give them 3 minutes. You have 3 minutes.
Question, what is the fund balance used for? I know it's a kind of a naive question, but what do you see the fund balance being used for?
Well, right now our fund balance is, we use about $2.1 million out of the fund balance every year as working capital from the end of June through the end of August when our tax revenues start to come in. We don't have any revenue source until the tax revenues comes in. So we still have to make payroll. We still have a debt payment that needs to be made and other expenses. And those come up to about $2.1 million in those 2 months. And then at the end of August, we tend to get all of our local tax revenue starts to pour in, and then we've got working capital for the rest of our expenses going forward. So above that amount, anything above that amount is money that sits aside and, for emergency spending or some issue that may come up like that we haven't budgeted for. So, for example, if we hadn't budgeted for a foundation and we were like, okay, well, that's something we want to do, but it's not part of the budget, that money has to come out of fund balance. It's not coming out of our operating budget. If we need to hire some coaches because we have some issues there, whether it's safety or Title IX or something else, that money has to come out of fund balance. Any unexpected expense would come out of fund balance.
Litigation for
litigation.
Special ed if we had.
Litigation, we have insurances.
But insurance is only going to cover some costs. It's not going to cover all costs. So litigation is litigation. Or we may have legal expenses that exceed what we budget. So we budget a certain amount for legal expense every year, but issues can come up that require us to have our attorney do work that we hadn't planned on them doing, and that could be hundreds of thousands of dollars. There's a whole host of different things that can occur in a 12-month cycle that we hadn't planned for.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
One other issue I mentioned, I asked the possibility looking forward, you were talking about closing a building. I mentioned the possibility of using modular classrooms to accelerate that process. I talked with a few people who said that the cost of providing those is really minimal compared to any sort of bricks and mortar construction. Just wondered if anybody thought any more about that.
I don't have any more information on that. I mean, I think that would be discussed in our facilities committee if that was, and I don't know. I don't think they've met since the last discussion. So
and obviously, we did have those at APC and the high school. And the high school.
You want to talk to the mic?
We did have those at APC and also the high school over the years. Obviously, APC renovation, and I believe there was 2 or 3 at APC. My son actually.
They worked out pretty well.
They worked out very well, and obviously that's what we're using at the facilities up at the stadium, modular rooms. So that's something we can take a look at. Obviously, with potential developments coming in, that might have to be an option.
Anything to excel. I realize that's not going to help this year. You're talking about projecting ahead and realizing what we're facing coming down the road. I've been doing a little reading about that in the spring. But anything that might accelerate the process where we could close the building, get rid of those costs, be able to sell the building, reduce debt.
I believe that would be minimal cost under obviously the buildings themselves, but obviously the hardware that was already plumbed from prior classrooms could obviously are probably still there.
I think that brings probably a better thought. I don't think we're, again, having looked at it, the closure of the building probably isn't reality, but not having to build another one, if the economy takes off with the developments that are on the books right now, is probably a bigger benefit because, we'd have to put those on the ground outside of, either Monocacy or AIC, to prevent having to build a building.
I think we'd be very reluctant to sell a building, because if you have another population upswing, to go out and locate ground, buy ground, go through the development costs, and build a whole other building far outweighs the cost of keeping a building, dormant for a few years, or leasing it out, or whatever the case may be. So.
Leasing it out or whatever, leasing it and pay the debt, a certain sort of building, which I realize we would have to do.
No, the debt doesn't go away. I mean, let me just say something about that. I mean, we've got debt on Monocacy, and I think APC, and I think even middle school, that we'll be paying off for years and years and years, regardless of whether we own the building or not. So we might as well keep that capital asset and use it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Contract 729 Second Street. What's the maximum millage you're legally allowed to increase for next fiscal year?
1.23 The maximum amount that we're legally entitled to increase is 1.2534 mils, if you include the two indexes, or the two special exceptions. So the increase in Act 1 is 0.6661. The special education exception 1 is 0.2883. And the retirement contributions exception number 2 is 0.2990.
Do you have a cost per home average if it was 1.2534?
I could. It's probably around $134,000.
$154.
Oh yeah, $154.92.
I really appreciate the passion on both sides tonight by the board talking about these issues. Because people feel strongly, and I'll say there's two sides, because there are. I just have a different view of public education. Many people, I look at it as an investment. I look at this in the newspaper and I see homes for sale, where you read little catalogs or the restaurants, and it always lists the school district, this school, the school district. And I think it's wrong to say that in the last 4 or 5 years there have been all bad decisions, and the word all wasn't used when somebody said bad decisions. I think, I'll just be frank, I think if you don't use the index this year, 1.25, we made a mistake for the future. I think the diversity problem that you've had, I think having languages, the language program you had in the middle school can help with that. It's not just learning to speak a language, but learning different cultures and how you're learning. I appreciate what you did with the payment. I think that have the highest activity fee in Berks County is an insult to the district and to the kids in this district. One of the decisions that I thought should have been made a couple of years ago, if you would have, when people were insistent there would be zero tax increase, there would be zero tax increase. That was a 0.5 that year. That would have forever had full day kindergarten. I think that's a mistake. There was a question made that somebody made a statement that at the end of the day, we're responsible to taxpayers. I'm telling you, if I was on the board, that would not be my philosophy. At the end of the day, the responsibility is to the students. That's where it should be. And the 1.25 up would help your not being a big hole that you're going to be next year. Politically, would it be light? No. But we're talking about students here. And in the last couple of years, when I saw Daniel Boone in the Sunday paper, do have the option. Don't have those to do it, I know that. That's just how.
Thank you.
Rich Martino, 225 West Coast Drive. I'd like to thank the board members who expressed a desire to not raise their taxes. At the same time, I'm going to tell you I'm disappointed. I heard many of you say, well, there's things we'd like to consider, but it's too late. Mr. Poole and I attended all the budget meetings last year and watched it be whittled down from the deficit you had to get a smaller deficit. I don't know why we waited till April 30th of this year to finally realize it was too late. Why didn't we start this in January, February, and March? But it is April 30th. Mr. Sheehan said he got an email saying that I raised my taxes. Write it back and tell them to send you the money that they say should be raised. I'd be glad to see them contribute. It's very easy for them to say that when it's our taxes, not just theirs, that they want raised. And I just heard expressed about the purposes of education. I don't disagree with that. I think too many people confuse education with money. Mr. Basil, you mentioned earlier about Boyertown and two other school districts that have a lot lower tax rate and a lot higher test scores. The bulk of your expenditures, if I'm not mistaken, based on my experience when I before I retired, are salaries and benefits. And your salaries and benefits have gone up beyond what you're capable of paying, and it has not increased your test scores. Throwing money into the problem does not solve the problem. Now, I keep hearing what's going to happen next year. Unless Governor Gordon is somehow taken out of office, you're not going to get more money next year, right? And you're going to have to look and say, what can we afford? Because I gather that the teachers union did not come to the table and say, we understand there's a problem, we're going to make concessions. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so I would keep that in mind the next time you negotiate a contract and you're going to try to work on it, because I think they're doing quite well considering before the debate. One last thing, I know one meeting you talked about in the debate, Senator Rockgate, he's declined to come to the board meeting. I suggested you invite Representative Mahoney, and I believe that's been done. But I also heard you talk about the revenue industry here, and that's true. We also have lost senior citizen complexes that would have had taxpayers come into the community without kids coming into the schools. Have you ever had meetings with the township supervisors? Do they understand what's like in the school district?
Yeah, we've had several meetings with them.
That's next one with them.
Have they done anything?
No, I mean, look, they understand the situation we're in, and we've met with the supervisors of Amity Township and Union Township and Birdsboro, and Amity Township has been very progressive in trying to set up economic zones of development that just bring in industry. They've been working hard to save open space and reduce their exposure to residential housing. Union Township has been working very hard with the developments that are coming in, that there be 55-plus housing as opposed to housing with children, to ease the burden on the school district. I mean, I think all the townships recognize the issue, and they're doing what they can with their zoning to provide for more commercial industrial properties here in the district, as well as reducing the residential product that would provide for more kids and then thus more expense for the school district. So we're in tune with them. We just haven't been able to, I mean, unfortunately, a lot of the stuff that they're working on, you know, the economy in the real estate market in particular took a nosedive, and there's nothing they can do about that until the economy improves. But I think they've taken the steps they need to take to put the zoning in place to allow for the appropriate kind of development that we're looking for. Mm-hmm.
Samantha Marshall, 316 Woodsedge Drive. I'm speaking as a mother of a fourth grade dance student. I'm also speaking as an educator of fifth graders that I truly see on a daily basis the positive impact that elementary dance plays in their lives, and I can speak to it very, very confidently. I know that these are the foundational years for these students. They are much more eager and willing and Bless you.
Thank you.
And then also reading outlets for families that cannot afford private lessons that were mentioned before. These programs in public schools can help expand the horizons for those less fortunate children that would never have an opportunity to pick up that instrument or try without the opportunity to lease it, to try to be aware of other things in their lives. Music affects the growth of a child's brain academically, emotionally, and physically. I know that the study shared that before, but it is something that I see on a daily basis. As an educator, I know firsthand the positive effects that elementary band has on the students in my school. I can point especially this year to a student who deeply cares about playing percussion. He would truly be a disruption to himself, to others. His family really relies on that opportunity. And I feel very passionately that this is his outlet. This is his opportunity. I know there are other outlets, but this is an opportunity for him to feel he belongs to a deeper sense of something bigger than himself, which I don't know with the media, internet, and everything else that exists today. If students feel that sense of belonging, organization, teamwork, perseverance, which is something we need to work with, courage and pride in the results. And this is a first-hand way for them to see that on a day-to-day basis. They get the opportunity to work with other students in a way that they might not get to in the classroom. And I think that's very important to remember when we're looking at this program. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other comment? Okay. Before we close for the budget, I think.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Executive session.
Yeah. No, there's an executive session, but I think Ms. Hamill. Did you want to discuss this?
I just want to bring,
Okay. We'll just take a couple minutes, discuss it real quick, and then.
Okay. Being that I'm on the Revenue Enhancement Committee, being the chair, we've been looking for different ideas. I presented this because we're not going to be able to meet as a committee until the time frame for this circus is passed. Can you hear? I was saying that one of the reasons I'm presenting it today is because the Revenue Enhancement Committee will not be able to meet until after this decision needs to be made. So I want to present it with, it's brought to my attention that we could have a circus to come to town, and looking at how to have it at Daniel Boone's pool. We would be able to have it in the gym. Seating capacity of the gym, I talked to Ken, he said between 800 and 900 people could sit per show. It would be on June 24th. There'd be 2 performances. And what we need to do is, I was thinking of making a decision if that's something we want to get involved in. I have other opportunities that we're able to present. I would like this to be more of a community event, not just a Daniel Boone fundraiser, but a way for the community to come together and be a part of things that we do here at Daniel Boone. So I have on one of the sponsor options, which is go out to companies and try to get them to donate $50 or more, and we put a banner together for them. All those things can be changed. I just put this together probably in less than 2 days. And other option would be to allow people to come and have a table set up for their company to present what they do. You could have any type of company, a PT. I know a lot of OTs, PTs that have their own businesses. It might be a good outlet for them to present their company. And for each one of these, they would pay either $25 for a table to set up, or $35 if they want to attend. That would be for more of a sponsoring opportunity for the businesses. And then for the kids, to try to get, the circus basically is going to attract more of the younger kids, like maybe elementary, middle school. Whereas to get the older high school kids involved, I wanted to have them be able to set up an activity booth to help raise money for their program. If it's a track or a band, or just to allow the volleyball team to have them set up something that would make a nice event for the whole community to see all the programs that we provide here at Daniel Boone. And those groups could actually raise their own money through that. And there's other things here. But I just wanted to present it to make sure that it's something that we would want to do. I'm actually looking for help to help spearhead this. I've made some calls to different organizations that might want to help with this project. The circus is the main event to get people there. But I think as a community event, it should be more of a community get-together rather than just a Daniel Boone fundraiser.
I guess my concern is, what's the impact to the gym? Obviously, the floor, obviously, Mr. Smith, you talked to him?
Yes.
Did you bring this up with Dr. Otto to get administrative approval?
I brought it up to Dr. Otto. I talked to Ken, and what happens is the circus actually brings in floor protectors, so they don't do anything by wheelies. They hand carry everything. The gym floor will be protected. They clean up. They pretty much do it all. They come in, they set up, they do it all.
Are there any upfront costs that the school district has to bear, or is it pretty much we're just providing the facilities for the school district or for the circus to use?
Well, if you look at what the sponsors need to agree with, depending on how these, work, the ring they bring themselves, it's just how they set it up. We need to have restrooms, which we have, water supplies, dumpster, and I was hoping maybe we could find some, if we needed extra dumpsters to maybe donate the dumpster. All these things are more of what we need to talk to with people who are actually going to spearhead it and find out what we can do.
Looking at it from the business office perspective and putting that cap on, I would have a facilities use form, so we would be charging them facility use fee because it's a fundraising according to the policy. I'm sure we would have to have custodial staff there, so there's going to be a fee charged.
Why are we responsible for licenses? It says here, it says we'll provide for licenses.
Well, when I talked to Ken, he said when I read the lease, it was basically
Well, I have another question.
It wasn't a big issue.
And this is a far-fetched question. Are we legally allowed to have animals in the buildings?
No, that's the question.
Well,
These animals?
The animals they're bringing are ponies and dogs for this show.
Again, can you legally bring them in the building unless they're guide dogs or seeing eye dogs?
I haven't had any time to research any of this.
Look at the liability of the district when you're bringing not only animals but running such a thing. What if somebody, a performance actor breaks his neck or breaks his leg? Seriously.
Understood, but part of that facility use policy is they would have to have an insurance policy covering that, or we wouldn't.
I agree with that, but again, that's why I think our solicitor has to be looking at
Liability
this.
insurance policy.
When do you really need to know?
Ticket sales need to go on like ASAP.
Could we-
Because we make the most money out of advanced ticket sales.
Right.
We drag our feet on it, then we have 8 weeks out. I talked to the Community Buzz. She said, she could help me in any capacity to get things going. I talked to other businesses that might be willing to get involved right away. I mean,
Could we go back to the solicitor, Dr. Otto, and maybe bring this up next Monday at facilities?
Yes.
if you want to,
How
but.
about we do that, then we can.
Before we go any, how much are we looking at? If all the planets align, the sun's over my shoulder, and it's a nice sunny day, what's the most amount of money we can hope to generate out of this?
At the ticket sales, we were looking at possibly $5,000, but that did not account for any of the company's sponsors.
So, but is that net of expenses?
That's net expenses from printing
Or is
tickets?
that's
We
just
don't have
tickets?
to do that. They provide all the marketing material, they'll provide the tickets.
How do they get paid?
For our ticket sales. Our advanced ticket sales, we get a percentage of the advanced ticket sales. The more we can sell in advance, the more we're going to pull in.
Yeah, but the most we can sell is 1,600. If you could fit 800 in the gym,
Right,
you get two
you
shows.
won't fit that.
Okay, so the point is, what's our net possible revenue with
Well-
all expenses factored in?
I haven't figured all that
I
out.
figured the most you can make is $27,000 here. If it's 900 times 15, 900 times 2 times 15, that's like 27,000 bucks.
Yeah, but then you have to get all the expenses.
Well, I'm just saying that would be the most revenue, not
Again,
and then
I
throwing
understand
cars and
that's
all that
what's
kind of stuff.
revenue.
So maybe you're talking about
But
30 grand total. Now you got to back out your
That's what I'm saying.
expenses.
What's our net? I mean, you could be spending the water, the security, the cleaning, you can.
I think we need to get those answers.
Well, that's
I
what
don't
I'm saying,
think.
and that's why I think
Part of
facility
why
should
we're
look at it.
having sponsors. I mean, the sponsors are.
No, I think the facility got to look at this.
Before you think you get anybody on the board to consider, you need to run the expenses down. You need to find out
Water.
what's going to cost to clean, what's our custodial cost going to be.
Security.
Janitor,
Janitor,
you got all
dumpsters.
the revenue on one side, you You need to bring our expenses, even if they're
Well, from my
intangible,
understanding in
expense.
past times, with all the finances that we deal with the facilities, they constantly tell me it doesn't cost anything about facilities. It doesn't cost us a dime. We don't put it down to where how much toilet paper we use, how much water.
We're not asking that.
No, but what you're asking,
There's a cost.
yeah, and that cost has been given to so many other groups at free, no fee.
But that's based off of the school policy. This one in
Right, and that's
particular is
something-
going to
But
be
that's
your
different.
category 2, I think, which is fundraising or 3,
Correct,
and
correct.
that's going to where your fees are going to come in because
Correct.
they're actually charging a
Correct.
fee. So, I mean, to say that we're not charging the other, we're following board policy.
Who's the actual organization that would fill out the facilities use request here? I'm a little fuzzy on that.
Yeah, is it us
Well,
or?
so far, the contact is here, if you don't mind getting
But
up.
that-
And then the booking agent is another gentleman that I talked to today.
But no, I think what Doctor's asking is who fills out the
Who's-
who uses-
No, we
who's
don't need the
filling it?
circus.
The circuit's going to fill
So
it
then,
out.
again, then that's why all those additional costs can be charged to them by our board policy.
And they would take it out of ticket sales.
They'd have
I think
to-
what you need to do is, if we could talk to Ken Smith at facilities and just find out what your custodial costs are, security. A dumpster is only going to cost like $500. I don't think you're talking about a lot of. Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of other additional costs. I think we just need to nail down what the custodial and security costs are, so we understand what the potential expenses are going to be versus for the district. So when you're having a conversation with the King Brothers Circus, I got to believe that they could also probably give us some sort of statistics on, well, how many people are actually going to show up to one of these things, depending on what the advertising. They got to have some sort of run rate.
Sales, the quicker you start, I mean,
Sure.
I've worked in this industry before, you have a window of opportunity to sell
Absolutely.
tickets.
Absolutely.
And if you wait too long, you're going to cut that.
I don't think anyone wants to drag their feet, but I think what we probably need to do is have a discussion about this at facilities, and you guys come to us
Have
with
King Brothers come to the facility.
make a recommendation to us on what the costs are. I'm all for it. Whatever I can do to help, I'd be happy to do what I can to help promote this thing. I think if you can sync up with all our past sponsors and advertisers in the school district, we should have a list of who those people are, and we can begin calling them. I think you get the classes involved, the schools involved as part of the fundraiser.
Get involved, it's just that if we wait a month.
No. I think you need to.
I know, but I'm saying, a lot of times these meetings go from meeting to meeting.
Yeah, I hear you.
And then
If
before
we
you
either
know it.
decide next Monday or it's a dead issue.
I have a question. I'm sorry, one other question.
Yeah.
Can it be done outside?
Actually, when I talked to them, the Big Ten event is set up for next year coming through this area, and absolutely, I would like to get on board for the Big Ten event. And
I mean, we have a field right over here.
I know, I talked to Kenny about how we could run the Big Ten event, but this would prelude that. You do something smaller, you get them involved, you get people excited, get the community involved, and then look to next year and do a
Right.
bigger event.
I agree with that. You get your toe in the water to start. It's good. Look, I think it's a great idea, and I think if you can get a phone call to Ken would probably get a lot of these sort of preliminary questions answered in terms of costs, and then I think you guys we need to figure out the logistics, and then who's going to help support this thing and get the ball rolling.
Well, that's why I need to know, like, on Monday, because if I call these organizations and they jump on board and they say they can do it, I want to let them run.
No, wait, though, your committee can't do that.
It's a creative way to increase revenue.
I'm not running the circus.
No. Your committee does not decide.
Don't make me say that too
Come
loud.
up with my program.
Let's bring it. Or before.
Okay. Well, that's why I wanted to bring it up tonight. Those things are out.
Okay. Any other comments, board members?
Nope.
Okay. This meeting's adjourned. Thanks. Executive session.
Do you want to know
what it is?
Personnel
litigation.
You forgot to announce that, Dan.
Is this a public meeting?
Technically,
Okay.
I mean,
It's an executive session.
You could announce it at the next
Do
meeting.
it next